If you've ever traveled to Greece, been to a Greek restaurant, or just been casually interested in reality, you know that ouzo is an important drink to Greek culture. This clear-than-cloudy spirit is as synonymous with Greece as tequila is to Mexico, vodka to Russia, and cachaça to Brazil. Ouzo is there for any Greek occasion, celebrations, before or after a meal, or as just a plain old drink. But what exactly is it, and where did it come from? And why does the drink get so cloudy? Well, today I'm talking about ouzo. What it is, where did it come from, what's it taste like, and what can I drink with it? But before I get going, do me a huge favor and subscribe to Come to Cheesus. Cheesus will bless you for this, and let me know what other drinks you would like to hear more about. Okay, this ouzo is all Greek to me. Let's be honest, black licorice is no one's favorite flavor. You may tolerate black licorice, but nobody is making a birthday request for a sack of all black jelly beans, unless of course you're a replicant. You definitely wouldn't toss back a handful of good and plenties to get your palate ready for a night of fine dining, so why the hell is ouzo so delicious? For those of you who have never shouted "Opa" while half in a bag with a gyro in hand, ouzo has risen above the handicap of its distinct black licorice flavor to become the national drink of Greece. And that's the country Greece, not the musical. And regardless of how you feel about black licorice, the flavorful aperitif is a tasty addition to an evening meal, or really any time you're in the mood to savor a truly adult beverage. No, seriously, it's like the Brussels sprouts of liquor. It has a big, bold flavor that rewards those with sophisticated taste buds. Ouzo is a potent, cloudy liquor made from rectified spirits that is a base ethanol that has been distilled to a highly concentrated form. The ABV of the resultant spirit is somewhere around 40%, depending on the bottle you've purchased. So don't go mixing it in a solo cup with some Four Loko. This stuff goes in a glass. Ouzo is actually brewed with anise, the same little flower that gives absinthe its distinct taste. It's typically infused with other herbs and plants as well, including fennel, cloves, and coriander. In the grand booze scheme of things, ouzo is a relatively new drink. The first ouzo distillery was opened in 1856 in Tinarvos, Greece, by a man named Nicholas Katsaros. That distillery is still in operation today, which should give you an idea of the popularity of this high-profile hooch. But the recipe for ouzo began its journey far earlier, and just like a bunch of other beverages crowded beneath the booze umbrella, ouzo's origins can be traced back to monks. Because when you're a monk, you have a lot of downtime, and you're probably a drunk. Ouzo is a further distilled version of Sapporo, a grape-based brandy typically brewed from the leftover pumice generated during winemaking that packs quite a wallop on its own. Sapporo is believed to have been invented by Greek Orthodox monks living in Mount Athos, Greece in the 14th century. Mount Athos is such a hotspot of religious activity that it was declared a World Heritage Site in the 1980s. So you know they kick it old school with their liquor. Like ouzo, Sapporo is also flavored with anise and just as potent, which could explain why monastic calligraphy is so damn intense. No one knows for sure how ouzo eventually sprang out of Sapporo, or indeed if it did at all. Not everyone is convinced of the monk connection, but one explanation suggests that a shipment of especially high-quality Sapporo with potent anise flavoring was sent from an Italian shipping company to Marseille, France, bore the label Ouzo Messiah, or for Marseille. According to the story, that label gradually became a shorthand for anise-flavored Sapporo until it was eventually shortened to Ouzo or Ouzo. Of course, there are a few conflicting theories behind the name's origin. Others claim it could simply be a variation of uzum, the Turkish word for grape. Much like champagne, ouzo enjoys the protection of Protected Geographic Indication, or PGI, as enforced by the European Union. In other words, ouzo can legally only be produced in Greece, and by a specific process involving a specific kind of still called amvika. The law also requires you to follow a particular batch of ingredients to brew official state-sanctioned ouzo, but the full recipe is an industry secret, which acts as an additional safeguard against it being produced outside of Greece or in my bathtub. It begins with a potent neutral base, also known as a rectified spirit, which is a spirit that has been highly distilled. The spirit is distilled from grapes and then mixed in a large copper pot with the various ingredients for flavoring such as fennel seeds and anise, which is then distilled again. The resultant brew is then called Ouzo yeast, although it doesn't actually contain any yeast. Sort of like how a hot dog isn't actually made of dog. Well, usually. It's not time to put away the still just yet because the Ouzo yeast must be then distilled 2 more times to achieve the appropriate mixture. Finally, some water is typically added to further dilute the drink's strong alcohol content. Sugar may be added at this point too, depending on the manufacturer. The final brew is ready to be bottled and shipped to liquor stores and Greek restaurants the world over. Ouzo is frequently compared to black licorice or sambuca or Turkish Arak. Its strong flavor is enhanced by a higher amount of sugar than most spirits, which makes for a satisfying if potentially dangerous sip. Why dangerous? Well, if you've ever had one too many of those hard ciders, you know that sugary booze can delay their intoxicating effects. Ouzo is one of the sneakier liquors meant to be enjoyed on its own. So if you're not careful with your sips, you could be setting yourself up for an ambush later on in the evening. Kind of like hanging out at a bar where the predator is a bartender. Despite the timeless wisdom of LMFAO and Lil Jon, Ouzo is meant to be sipped and savored rather than splashed into a shot glass. And not because of its comparatively high alcohol content. And also, let's be real, a high APV just means it's more likely to find its way into a round of birthday shots. Thanks to potent ingredients like cloves, anise, fennel, and other flavorings, Ouzo is simply too intense to casually flood your taste buds with a single gulp. But why does Ouzo get cloudy? It's not because you're too drunk and you're seeing things. Ouzo turns milky white because of the Lausch effect. And that happens when you add ice or water to Ouzo. See, the key ingredient to Ouzo is anise, which is key to the Lausch effect. The anise oil droplets are insoluble in water, or in other words, they're incapable of being dissolved. After water is added, the anise settles solid material out of a liquid solution and forms tiny droplets. Those droplets scatter with the light hitting the glass that it is in, making the Ouzo appear opaque or milky white. Even though it's classified as an aperitif, Ouzo can be enjoyed any time of the day, at any point during a meal or completely on its own. In Greece, it's most commonly consumed on special occasions or in the evening alongside some snacks or meze, such as olives or a small salad, because the drink is not meant to be enjoyed on an empty stomach. That's pretty much true for all booze. It's why the most flea-bitten dive bars surrounded by police tape still serve nachos. And although it's served chilled, the bottle itself should not be refrigerated. Seriously, don't do it. You would be in violation of Greek law. Instead, the drink is poured into a glass over 2 ice cubes and slowly sipped. Personally, I like pouring a little bit of Ouzo than adding some cold water. On a spectrum of other boozes, it's closest to Sambuca for flavor and APV. It also strikes a familiar note to absinthe, but not nearly as strong as the Green Fairy. And I'm not someone who likes that black licorice flavor, but this version is pretty palatable. The water gives some space to that black licorice vibe, giving it a simple, refreshing bite. If classy were a drink, this would be it. Classy and celebratory. When drinking Ouzo, it magically transports you to a sunny afternoon. And for me, this drink would work day or night. It's the sipping that's primarily responsible for Ouzo's classification as an aperitif. A drink meant to activate your palate and stimulate conversation, because nothing gets those lips wiggling like a stiff drink. But just because Ouzo is traditionally served on its own, doesn't mean it's afraid to mix and mingle. There are many enjoyable cocktails you can whip up with a bottle of Ouzo by your side. Because the liquor is relatively sweet, most cocktails involve fruit juice or sugary syrups. For example, you can make yourself a breezy Ouzo cocktail with orange and lemon juice and agave syrup. Put all your ingredients into a cocktail shaker, then pour it into a sugar-rimmed glass with ice, and voila! The perfect beverage for a brunch, and if it's a Greek brunch, even better. But to me, this actually feels like a drink you would want to have on the beach. It's tropical, more Caribbean than Greek in my mind, but anywhere that takes you somewhere nice, I'm good with that. And while it's sweet, it's not too sweet. It has enough of that Ouzo flavor to keep you from chugging them. Speaking of brunch, you can also make yourself a Be My Ouzo. It's kind of like an Ouzo spritzer. Just get some chilled sparkling wine, preferably Greek, toss it into a shaker with some ouzo, pineapple juice, lemon juice, and honey syrup, which is a simple syrup made with honey instead of sugar, and then garnish that bad boy with a sprig of thyme. Kaboom! You got yourself a Be My Ouzo. This thing has a lot of depth. The bubbles level out the taste, and there's a nice balance of sweetness, and Be My Ouzo has like a full-bodied flavor. And Greek law doesn't require you to call it by that stupid name either. Now, has anybody tried a Greek jelly bean? It's a pretty simple drink, just ouzo, grenadine, and lemonade. This is delicious. It's like an old school Easter red jelly bean, and it got mixed up with some of those black jelly beans in there. It's a nice refreshing drink, and it's what a sweet drink should be. My recommendation? The Greek jelly bean. So Opa! Enjoy some great Greek food along with your ouzo. So what do you think? How do you feel about ouzo? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from Come to Cheesus.